This Christian faith we have is something absolutely amazing, incredible, and shocking. And one of the struggles I find in our world is so much of our world has really believed in the gospel for a very long time. And the danger in that is it has become so much a part of our culture that it can be easy to miss how shocking it is. It's become such a part of our culture that even those that try to deny the faith so often use the words we use in the faith and the way we think about things to still continue how they go about their lives. And they still rely on it for their thinking. So many things about our faith that were once shocking have become such a part of our world that we can miss just how wild they really are. The idea that the infinite God, the creator of the world, sent his only begotten Son into the world as one of us, so that he might suffer and die on a cross for our salvation, and we are redeemed by the blood of the God who died on a cross. You know, we've heard that story so many times. It is the cornerstone of our faith, but the danger is we've heard it so many times we can allow it to become familiar, almost feel natural, and it can lose its shock value. How every piece of that to the ancient world was absolutely shocking. Do we realize how wild an idea it is that the creator of the world cares about us? That the creator of the world became one of us? That the creator of the world chose to sacrifice his life for us so that we could be like him, that we could join him for all eternity? One of the real blessings I found in the time I've been working in the prison is just by virtue of where you are, I'm around all kinds of other people from all kinds of various faiths and lots of minority religions, and around people who like to tell you all about what they believe and why, because they have all kinds of time to read about it. And one of the realities I find as I really listen is I find more and more just how unique the Christian faith really is when you see it against the backdrop of everything else out there. When you realize just how strange Jesus Christ is compared to every other religion that ever existed. And yet, how incredibly real and personal. You see, for most non-Christians, when we heard last Sunday's gospel with the temptation in the desert, the idea that God would fast for 40 days and 40 nights and then be hungry, for many seemed absolutely ridiculous. God is all-powerful. He's the creator of the world. He can make whatever he wants, so hunger and thirst are weaknesses. God can't be weak. God's all-powerful. And then others would look at and say, what do you mean you have a God that cares about human beings? A God that could love us? He's so different from us. He created everything in the world. And for many other non-Christians, they might say, a God might find you useful. You might make yourself useful to whatever plan he had, but he doesn't care about you individually. You're so tiny compared to what he is. And when we start to hear these things, a God who loves us, a God who cares about humanity, is wild to anyone else. And we have all kinds of stories all the way through the gospel that every non-Christian, every pagan, every Jew who heard it would shake their head and say, what? That can't be right. But yet, there's something about it, and something about what this Jesus teaches that is so different from everything everyone expected, and yet it feels so real. And I think we have to really get that idea, get that concept of how wild and crazy and different Jesus Christ is than everything else to understand what happens this Sunday. Because today is the moment at the Transfiguration when finally we see the God that everybody expected for one brief moment. When God appears shining in a bright cloud with a booming voice, this finally is the God that everybody expected, that everybody thought was coming. This is the all-powerful creator of the world who proclaims what he wants in a giant booming voice from heaven, whose clothes turn white as light, shining like the sun. Even in movies, when we think of how they portray God, what happens? The person's clothes suddenly turn bright white and start shining. This spotlight shines down on them from above. All they have turns white, and you hear the booming voice of James Earl Jones proclaiming, "This is God." That's the image we have. And yet, why? Why does Jesus reveal himself to us today in this Transfiguration exactly as everyone expected, and yet all the rest of the time, he doesn't? He appears like one of us. Well, I think we have to see last week and this week in perspective. You see, last Sunday with the temptation in the desert, we heard about a Jesus we can relate to. We heard about a Jesus who was human, a Jesus who was tempted, who was fully one of us. A God who walked out in 40 days and 40 nights without food, and he was hungry. A God that the devil came to and tried to tempt and take advantage of. We see a God who is like us. Well, today, we see a God who is every bit the God we expected, mighty, all-powerful, and the sort of God who can take all the concerns of the world, all the problems we face every day, that the God understood who was tempted, and now he can take all of our problems and hold them in the palm of his hand. This is the God who can do something. This is the God who created the world. So I suppose you might say, last Sunday we encountered a God who understands and cares about the problems we have in this world. Today we encounter a God who has the power to do something about it. And when we see those two together, we start to understand that Jesus Christ really is fully human and fully divine. So why doesn't Jesus appear like this all the time? Why doesn't he give us this image of himself in the booming cloud with the great shining like the sun so that we could all look at him and see exactly what's going on? Because sometimes, if we're honest, I think we can feel like God's absent from our lives. Like we wish he would be more active in our lives. Like we wish he would make himself more known in the world. Like when in the middle of a situation he would swoop down, have this booming voice from heaven and tell us exactly what we're supposed to do and exactly what order we're supposed to do it so that we could really listen. It's as if we want God to give us his words exactly in the way we could see it and hear it. Wouldn't it be great if God just took all of those things he wants us to do, all of his words, and gave them to us? It'd be even nicer if he took all of those words and kind of wrote them down in a book for us so that we could just pick it up and read it anytime we wanted to. Oh, wait a minute. He kind of did. And yet, this God who is almighty, all-powerful, all-loving, and universal by his very nature, why doesn't he reveal himself more perfectly to us right now and come in that booming voice all the time? Well, I think we see exactly why right in this reading. Because what happened to the apostles when he did that? When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But then Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and do not be afraid." When the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. You see, when God presents himself in all of his glory, it's more than we can bear. And something happens when he presents himself in all his glory. We are faced ultimately with the final choice. Will we follow him completely and perfectly and give all of our lives to him? Or will we fall short and choose otherwise? And if we're honest with ourselves, I think we can say, I don't know what I would do in that moment. And that's scary. Would we really turn to him and say, yes, I'm ready to go with you and live with you forever? Or would we look at him and say, it's great that you're here. Hold on real quick while I take care of a couple things and I'll be right back. After all, isn't that what Peter said? Hold on, Lord, it's great that you're here. Let me make 3 tents, one for you, Moses, and Elijah. Let me go take care of a couple things so we can prep this for you, because I'm not quite ready for the final revelation yet. Think about that. And so what does Jesus do instead? What he does is he presents himself in all kinds of varied ways. He gives us every opportunity to encounter him, to prepare ourselves, to make mistakes. He shows himself to us in a hidden way so that we have the opportunity to see him a little bit and grow a little bit and make mistakes and realize maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, Lord. Can I try again? I want to do better. And we grow a little more and a little more as we come to know him more and more and more, better and better and better throughout our lives, so that when the day finally comes at the final judgment, when we stand before him in eternal glory, we can say, I know beyond any shadow of a doubt, this is the God I want to choose. This is who I want to follow. Yes, Lord, I'm ready. And probably my favorite example of this concept, if you've ever been to a Catholic funeral, you've heard the reading from the Book of Wisdom, that the hands of the just are in the hands of God, and no torment shall touch them, and that we are like gold tested in the furnace. Now, if you pull a chunk of gold right as it comes out of the mountain, it's kind of shiny, but it's kind of dull, and it's a whole bunch of different stuff in this piece of gold ore. And so what do? They take that and they heat it up slowly. They heat it up slowly so that some of the impurities come off, and they strain them away, and they heat it up a little more and strain off a little more. That's what God does with us. Because if you heat it up too quickly, what happens? All these little pieces heat up at different temperatures. So if you heat it up too quickly, some of the stuff inside is going to turn into a gas. It's going to be under pressure, and it's ultimately going to explode. That's the reality of coming into God's presence as we see him in the Transfiguration. We are not capable of really standing in his presence as we are. And so what does he do? He gives us the opportunity to make us ready so that we might stand in his presence. And he purifies us. Jesus knows that we are imperfect the way we are, and we need things like the sacrament of confession to continue to purify us. And he gives us little glimpses because he knows we are not capable of handling him and how overwhelming he really is in himself. So he gets us ready. He encourages us. He helps us every step of the way so that we can be made ready to ultimately stand in his presence. Scenes like today remind us of who Jesus really is. And we do have those mountaintop experiences in our spiritual lives. But you can't live on the mountain. Not yet. Because we're not ready to. Because we still have those impurities inside of ourselves that need cleansed and purified and restored. And when we really see last week's gospel in context with this one. Last week we heard of the temptations in the wilderness. As Jesus was tempted like us, And we come to understand that we have a God that understands what those temptations really look like. Today, we see a God who's capable of dealing with them. And the way he does that is by encouraging us, by building us up, by showing us the way, by allowing us to ask forgiveness for our sins, by being willing to change and be transformed through his grace, so that someday we might be formed into something better than we are right now. We might be formed into saints. That's the call of the Christian life. And when we're overwhelmed, when that seems too big, when we encounter Jesus a little more than we were quite ready for, what does he do? He does for us exactly what he did for the apostles. And when we're overwhelmed, he gives us the same instructions he gave them. Rise and do not be afraid. Come, take up your cross and follow me, so that we might be made ready, so that someday in glory we will be able to stand with the saints in heaven, ready to encounter him as he truly is, face to face.